Okay, welcome to this webinar that we're doing with Ethan from Practice Ignition, and it's around your guide to client engagements. So thank you for joining us, and thank you, Ethan, for sharing the screen with me and presenting this particular topic. I know it's, there's always changes in client engagement, so it's great to have you on from Practice Ignition sharing the information. So yeah, welcome.
Thanks, Katrina. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be chatting with you all. I love the Zoom meeting format so we can see everyone, all your names here, which is great. So yeah, keen to keep this pretty conversational. I guess the reason why I originally reached out to Katrina to organise a discussion about this was that there have been some changes to legislation recently just around what we should be including and how we should be treating our client engagement letters. And for those of you who aren't familiar with our solution, we've got about just over now 5,000 bookkeeping and accounting businesses around the world who are using Practice Ignition. It is a tool that's primarily used to help automate the client onboarding portion of the relationship. And a big part of that is the engagement letter. And so we get so many questions around, what should the engagement letter include? Is it mandated? Is it best practice? Why should we be doing this? Why do we need to include fees? All these sort of things, which I'm hoping we can have a discussion about today. And as I mentioned to Katrina, very keen to keep it conversational. If you have any reflections or you want to call me out on anything that I've, anything that I've gotten wrong, please feel free to do that in the chat. But yeah, no, it's great to be going through this with you today. So Katrina, I might just get cracking into a couple of different points and we can have a bit of a discussion, and then I'm more than happy to go into more detail on any points if need be, or jump into the product if people are interested in the product. If I could get you to jump in the chat though before I get into the content, and let me know if you're currently using Practice Ignition or not. It'd be just great to see if there are any current customers on the call today. Hopefully this will add some value to you as well. And if you're not currently using, Jessica, great. Anita, fantastic. Richard, awesome. Sandra, thanks for chiming in there. I think this will actually add value to both customers and those who aren't currently using it. Yeah, a lot that aren't using it to the full capacity. That's very, very common. So I'm today basically going to cover a couple of key points, but share some learnings from the number of firms that are using our products as to how an engagement letter or an engagement strategy can add value to your practice and your client relationships. Typically was viewed as a bit of a tick box kind of compliance piece that was done via a Word or PDF proposal and engagement potentially. Maybe you're relying on an engagement letter that's 5 or 10 years old. Maybe you haven't signed one at all with your clients. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of engagements when it comes to getting paid on time. And I know that that's obviously a topic that's close to home, and that the Pure Bookkeeping guys talk a lot about that in terms of fee structure and when to bring up fees and the whole concept of re-engagement. And then just share a little bit around what the legislation says surrounding engagement letters as well. So in terms of our obligations, and this is sort of broadly applicable, but you can find this in a whole range of different areas. There's resources from the Tax Practitioners Board, there's resources that ICB, there's resources that the different membership bodies have, for both bookkeepers and for accountants, for the Professional Ethics and Standards Board as well has a range of different resources. But fundamentally, when we really dug into this, there wasn't much difference across all the different sets of guidance. And fundamentally, the industry guidance recommends engagement letters should outline the services which you're expected to provide, the capacity in which they're provided, how often they'll be provided, who is responsible for what and when, how those services will be charged, including the payment terms. So that should be included in the engagement letter, and we'll touch more on that in a few minutes. And then most importantly, what is not included, and that's what we've seen from so many bookkeepers who have come on board with Practice Ignition, is that it's equally as important what you're clear that you're clear about what is not included as you are clear about what is included. And I'm sure you would all resonate with the fact that clients would expect you to be a mild helpline or a support team for your general ledger. and expect more typically than what they're paying. And can be quite confronting and quite awkward at times to be bringing up conversations or saying, hey, actually, this isn't included, this level of service isn't included in what you're currently paying for. And so we're trying to encourage people, or give you guys a framework to kind of rely on and make those conversations a little bit easier. So specifically in terms of, actually, before I move on there, Katrina, have you got any reflection there on any of those points?
Yeah, I think it's really important that you do actually express really clearly of what is included. And what we suggest at Pure Bookkeeping is that you actually read through the engagement letter and the what is included. So, what your promise to them is and what their promise to you, or their commitment to you is, to make sure that they actually understand the scope of it. And it becomes a lot easier then to be able to have a conversation later about, well, we're out of scope, or what we need to do about that. So I think it's critical that we don't just glance over this document. We actually use this as a document of moving forward and building that relationship with your client, so that you're not getting frustrated with them and they don't take advantage of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And even from a risk mitigation perspective, they're incredibly helpful if there is the event of a dispute, whether it's a fee dispute or a dispute around the services provided. And a huge case for actually just sharing some liability with your clients as well in that regard. So they are agreeing to your services. So you're sharing some of that liability. So they have a responsibility to provide accurate and timely information to you as their bookkeeper. They have a responsibility to adhere to the advice that you've provided. And, we've seen plenty of instances with our customers where the client hasn't held up their end of the bargain and sort of dragged their bookkeeper into a dispute. So I think the engagement letter is for one, it's a good front line of defense to kind of weed out potential bad clients in that sense. But then it's also a really good risk mitigation tool moving forward. One of the board members from the Tax Practitioners Board, Greg, he always likens it to, you would never sell your house without a contract, right? So don't sell your services without an up-to-date and relevant engagement letter. So a bunch of questions we often get asked around who should I engage, and it's easy to work at a group level. So just to cover this very quickly, it is recommended as best practice that you engage each individual entity separately, whether it's a company and directors, or a partner and partners within the partnership, or what have you. And that is generally because it's not often that you'll be providing the exact same service to the same entity within the group. And so just getting really clear, like from an accountant's perspective as well, we've had instances where our clients have engaged a husband and wife as a couple, but then the marriage is broken down. And, in that sense, there's no clear, they actually should have been engaged separately from the start because they were different responsibilities. So just to cover off on that one quickly, this is probably the most common one. So folk relying on old engagement letters or just standard templates that they've kind of gotten years ago, whether it's from whether it's the Pure Bookkeeping one, or whether it's from a different body, or whether it's something you found on Google, or you had a lawyer review it, or you wrote it yourself. It is actually really important to be reviewing this in your firm at least annually, because there are so many changes that occur. And there are changes every year to the guidance around this as well. Just recently, we were actually just catching up with the professional standards team at Chartered Accountants, and they had all these changes around like data storage and confidentiality and offshore teams. And if you think about, the amount of cloud-based solutions that we're using now, you should actually have a privacy policy in place. Your engagement letter should disclose where all of the data is stored. So all of the ownership of data clauses, all of the clauses in the event of a breach. And you don't actually have to you don't have to write all of it out yourself, but you should be able to link off to each of the software providers' terms within your engagement letter as well, which is just critically important, because we know that these breaches do happen, and that is the reality of working in cloud software. Although very minimal, it is a risk that we have to accept. And so the other point there is that whenever there's a change to the services, or a significant change to the client's circumstances, that should constitute a new engagement letter. And the reason for that is because the scope of work that you're providing has changed, and the capacity in which you're providing those services has changed, and that should be reflected in your most up-to-date agreement. And so if they're needing last-minute information for a finance from the bank, or if they're needing a certain set of reports or need something done urgently, we would recommend that, if it's not included in your original scope, to actually send an amended engagement letter. And what we've seen in terms of a downstream benefit of this, in terms of training your clients, it means that when they are asking you to do something, do some additional work that they're aware is not in the current scope, they are expecting a new engagement. And so we've done a lot of study and sort of survey of our customers that have taken this approach, and it results in the clients understanding what they're paying for, firstly, and then also expecting to pay you more if they're asking you for something extra. And so if you are sort of being a yes man and sort of saying yes to this, that, and the other, and working out of scope constantly, and with the intention of helping your client, obviously, and you're wanting them to succeed and for them to be happy and provide a great service, which is awesome. But what it's doing is kind of training them to not actually value or see the value of the individual services that you're providing, which are incredibly valuable. So this is just part of that whole process around client education that we talk about. And that's effectively, moving on to managing scope creep. I've just rambled on for the last 10 minutes. Katrina, do you have anything to add on that point?
No, I think that's all good. I think it's just, confirms how important it is. It gives you the opportunity also to have that conversation with your client as you're reviewing your engagement letters and renewing them each year. I was actually asked the other day from a licensee, do I need, I haven't done a new engagement letter for a long time. Do I actually need to do one every year? And it's a good time to actually have that conversation with your client. Otherwise, when do you do that? Like you get stuck in doing the work. So why not have a rule that each year that you will review what you're doing and as you said, advise the client that you are going to do the renewing of the engagement letter every year, so they're excuse me, they're up to speed, and you get to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, and I think, and we talked about this in the webinar we just did recently, but I think we do get a fair bit of pushback thinking that the client's just going to see it as an opportunity to jack the fees up or whatever. But it's just in the way that you frame it. And so when we speak with firms who have done this successfully, it's like, we're going to implement an annual review. We're going to take an hour and a half, sit down with the client, understand whether we've met their expectations, where there's been a gap in expectations, a bit of feedback on the service that we provide. Have their circumstances changed significantly? Is there anything on the horizon that we could potentially assist them with? And to be being transparent about that as well. That we've it's a really good opportunity, as you say, Katrina, to say, hey, look, for the last 6 months we've actually been doing this. And it was actually outside of the scope of our original agreement. That's okay. We were wanting to do this for you as our client, but now that's actually going to be built into the fees for the next year. So we find this particularly relevant for firms who are either starting out or transitioning to like a fixed fee model, and they're wanting to quote their clients a fixed amount up front, and they're a bit afraid of leaving money on the table. If you put this review process in place, you're really mitigating that risk of drastically underquoting for the work. So it's a really important piece of the puzzle, and the letter just plays a part of that. That's not the whole thing. You're not just relying on the engagement letter itself. So as I mentioned, scope creep, very common, and you wouldn't believe the in some instances the amount of WIP that our customers, when they come on board, are carrying. Like we've seen in excess of $600,000-$700,000 at different points, and it's just been a crazy, and even for accounting firms, right? I think the average debtor days for accounting firms is sitting up close to 80. I'm not sure what it currently is for bookkeepers, but that's just appalling given the critical nature of the work that you're providing, effectively keeping your clients out of jail, that it's taking your clients on average close to 3 months to pay. So that's not the case with any other professional service. And so I think it does come out of a genuine desire to help clients, but at the same time, there is some really practical stuff you can put in place to make sure that is not the case, and getting paid timely for the work and the value that you're adding there. So Scope creep obviously happens when you're doing work you're not engaged for. If there's a change, if something urgent comes up, we've seen that over the last 18 months with all the government stimulus that's out there. I like to use the New South Wales service grant that happened recently. When you're applying for the lodgement for your client, you had to tick this box, which pretty much opened up. It was like, I agree for the ATO to audit everything if you're applying for this grant. And so that sort of element of shared liability or shared responsibility with the client is really important in those instances. But fundamentally, the benefits that we've seen across, as I said, thousands of different practices, so I think we've got a reasonable sample size, is that the clear articulation of services really minimises confusion and scope creep. And quite often, clients aren't maliciously looking to take advantage, but it's just they weren't clear on exactly what the inclusions were for the price. And so it gives you an opportunity to be super clear about that. Minimises disputes by dealing with the hard stuff, the awkward conversations up front. And then it fosters trust and gives your clients confidence that they know what they're paying for. They're confident that you're pricing this in a consistent way across your clients as well. And then ultimately giving you more opportunities to add value. So if there's, as I said, if their circumstances are changing, if they're looking at acquiring a business, or if there's some process improvement, you can undertake some sort of advisory work on top of the compliance stuff. They're adding more staff, they've got more complex payroll requirements, whatever it is. You're on the front foot there having that conversation, and you're able to notify them that you can actually help with that. You can actually help with those problems. So Katrina, would that be similar, like what you've seen with your licensees and the feedback that you've seen? Is that sort of been the impact of putting this process in place? I know that Sharon, in the webinar last week, we talked about having these awkward conversations up front, but yeah, keen to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that's right. In expressing, what it is that that we could possibly do, or just making them aware of what needs to happen. Just the expectations, being really clear up front with what your scope, what's included in the engagement letter, but it sort of leads into what could possibly happen, and it might not happen right now in terms of the value you could provide or the service that you can provide, the extra service, but it's having those conversations at the time of the engagement letters to say that the possibility is that we could extend those services into, monthly meetings, advisory services, hold your hands, notice within 24 hours, or, have conversations within 24 hours. Just building that in, and being able to separate, what is included in your engagement letter so that they know exactly what they're getting, and having that opportunity to as you say, introduce new services in as you're coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this does seem like, when you're going through this content, that it should be fundamental, right? It seems quite basic and it seems like it makes sense, but we are just constantly blown away at the number of firms and the number of bookkeepers who don't have a process around this. Even if it's a very light, it doesn't have to be something that's completely, just this amazing whiz-bang automated tech-fueled process. It can just simply be a process whereby there's an annual review set up, it's scheduled, there's an agenda, there's a framework to that meeting. As part of that, we review the engagement letter. As part of that, we review the recoverability and other work. We review the hourly rate. We review the inclusions, all that sort of stuff. If you've got a team, like where's the team been spending time on which clients, like all that sort of stuff. We sort of know, I think a lot of folk know it in their head and they've got all this knowledge up here, but it's just putting that framework in place to have the conversation with clients. And we've just seen some pretty amazing results from the back of it. And particularly with regard to upgrading, if you want to use that word, or upselling, or clients wanting to engage bookkeepers for more services, and not even understanding that they were offering that, or they had that on offer that they could take advantage of. So yeah, it's been really interesting for us to watch that. But
and it's becoming clear on your ideal client as well. Like who is that ideal client? We've got a lot of bookkeepers that are still not using, regular invoicing, or still on hourly and still not invoicing. And as you said, you've got accountants that have got hundreds of thousands. We've got, bookkeepers that have got tens of thousands of money on the table that either hasn't been invoiced or hasn't been collected. And it's because we don't value our own service. We don't value, what we are providing for the client, helping them out. We are helping them out in, if we're getting grants, they're getting tens of thousands of grants, and, we're not wanting to charge. We're, including it in a bookkeeping service. And
Yeah, that's right.
It's just the habit and the of not invoicing them. They're just getting further and further in debt, the bookkeepers. So then, they're feeling the pain of the clients, but still, the provision that you were giving them, the service that you're giving them, needs to be provided for. You need to factor that in. You need to, have that conversation with them around the value that you're providing.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, regardless of whether it's time cost or whether you're billing on a fixed rate, it kind of, this concept transcends the billing model in that sense, and that it's, it is still backing your value. And I guess there is an exercise in being able to clearly articulate that value. But I mean, there's, I think that we saw, particularly last year, a lot of this additional work happening with regard to grants, and there's so much discussion around, do we charge for this? Do we not charge for this? Well, you're helping your clients stay in business. You're helping them to pay their staff. Like, it's emergency funds. I would, if I was a business owner, I would highly value that, that access to funding, which relied on, my bookkeeper giving me these financial, so I think that it's just about seeing that and understanding that is of value. And sure, if you're in a position where you wanted to include that for some clients who really need it and not charge for it, absolutely. But there is a value there, and it needs to be articulated and included. So it's been quite amazing just to see the impact of all this and the changing nature of how we engage with clients as well, particularly as a lot of us are doing it remotely. So I know that this is a techie session. I was going to go a little bit into PI, Katrina. Was there anything else or any other key points you wanted to cover? Because I was keen to demonstrate how this all works in our product for those who are currently using and not using, so they're across it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Let's do that.
Cool. So fundamentally, the solution that we have built gives you an ability to automatically create proposals and engagement letters that are up to date. And so we're taking the manual process out of needing to update your Word documents or PDF documents whenever there's a change in scope. And we know that there hasn't really been an easy solution to do this in the past, and that's why that's why people aren't operating with up-to-date letters. Because let's be honest, who is going to go trudge through your emails, find the Word document, spend hours or an hour going through it, updating it manually, and then resend it to the client, which they have to manually print out and sign it and scan it and send it back to you. It's just a sucky process all around. So we've tried to take the pain out of that and give you a framework so that you can actually, it's a real easy process going in, changing the scope of the work, sending out a scope of work or a proposal to a new client. And I'll jump in and show you what that looks like in a tick. But we've been able to plug in all this cool stuff off the back of that because we understand exactly the services that you're providing to your clients, how often those services are provided, the exact scope of work. We're often linked into or integrated with the general ledger as well, whether it's Xero or QBO. So we can automate the payment collection, we can automate the invoicing, the reconciliation on that side, and we can provide some pretty cool insights to you as to how your firm's tracking, what are your most profitable clients, what cash is coming in the door over the next 12 months, what's your split between recurring fees and project work, all these sort of insights that you wouldn't have. Or if you've managed to get them somewhere, let me know. But most bookkeepers we speak to don't have those insights on hand, are ready for you on tap. And for those who, and this is, Katrina, something that we've found as well, even implementing practice ignition without the payments has been a huge game changer for a lot of firms. So obviously we can sort of step in and manage the once off or ongoing or on completion, collection of the payments, but even the engagement letter, just getting clear and presenting a proposal to your clients that's really clear on exactly what it is included is of value. And so it's a really good place to start. And then eventually moving the payment collection over to that so that it's taking that off the table as well. I won't dwell on this, but ultimately we used to be only really suitable for fixed fee agreements, and we've completely updated the whole system. So for those of you who are using PI on this call, I'm going to just step you through quickly what that looks like, but we can actually accommodate unit-based billing, hourly billing, fixed fee, whether it's weekly, quarterly, annually, monthly, upfront, on completion, recurring. Any combination of fee, service, and schedule and structure can be put into the proposal now. Your deposits, all that sort of gear as well. And that's still automating all the invoicing and AR off the back of it. And the third thing, which I think is really cool, and this is sort of what I was referring to earlier, the feedback from this, from bookkeepers, is that clients, most of the time when you're presenting 3 options or you're presenting 3 points of value, because you can clearly articulate and show the transparency between the 3 packages, they quite often end up picking the higher one, which has been quite surprising. Jess, that's a good question around time tracking. We don't have an automated integration for time billing, but I'll show you how you can set that up within PI. But it's a really good thought. I think Carbon just released time and time tracking and billing as well, so we potentially could do some sort of integration there. How far is the MyHub integration off? That's the golden question, isn't it? That I'm working on it, and I'd hope we'll have some news within the coming months, hopefully prior to the start of next year, but can't commit to anything on these webinars because I'll get recorded and it'll get sent back to me, and it's tough. We're working with 2 different teams, 2 different priorities, different APIs, all that sort of stuff. I just wanted to give folk a bit of an understanding of how this all works, and I'll show you actually what building a proposal looks like. But we've moved the focus from Practice Ignition from proposals onto clients. And so when you're now looking at your client, you can actually see all of the current services that have been agreed to. You can see all the information about the client. You can see the billing schedule, but more importantly, and this is where you can bill manually for these items. So for example, I was just trying to think here. If you wanted to invoice now for a particular service, you can finalize the quantity of all the unit-based billing stuff. So if you wanted to bill payroll per employee, or if you wanted to bill bookkeeping per transaction, you can now do that through PI. The cool thing here is that the invoices, you can see exactly what's going to be included on each invoice moving forward, and it links through into Xero as well. So you can click that button, it opens up in the GL to the invoice. And if you are using workflow, it will track all the jobs and deployed workflow off the back of the proposal for that client as well. But I want to show you just one thing in the new proposal editor, which will be new for a lot of you, even if you've checked out PI before, because we've only just kind of released this semi-recently. But the flexibility now around what you can actually build out within the proposals is it's another level and another degree to what we've had in the past. So what I'm going to use here is actually a provided template for my monthly bookkeeping and payroll services. And I have, these are actually provided templates available to all of you within PI, and you can create your own custom templates as well. But the beauty of this is that I can come in, I'm quoting a new client. I want my bookkeeping payroll engagement, but I want it billed monthly. We've also got that billed on completion and billed up front as well. But what I need to do is just search for a client here, which is synced through into Xero. Specify my minimum contract length. In this instance, for this template, it's a year. And I want that to occur on client acceptance. Or I can actually specify that to be at a future date. So if the client's signing it now, but I want the agreement to effectively start 1st of July, I can easily do that as well. So in the services tab here, which is the key thing that I'm kind of trying to get to, but keep waffling, is the ability to have these different combinations of services. So my bookkeeping and payroll is billed on a fixed amount here. You can see $250 a month for bookkeeping, $170 a month for payroll. If I wanted to adjust that, because I'm not a fixed fee practice, or I've got some services that aren't billed on a fixed fee basis, I can change that and go, I want to bill, payroll for, $25 per employee per month. And so you can see now how you really couldn't do that within PI. It was very ugly and it was a workaround. So the ability to have that combined with your fixed fee billing, which is happening on a monthly basis, and then combine that with some quarterly services, so your quarterly BAS in that instance. And then what I might also want to do is add in, if it was an advisory discussion, or I'll just pick this one as an example, but if you had sort of a quarterly meeting, as you suggested, Katrina, more frequent touch points with the clients, you could build that in and bill it on either a fixed rate, or give them a range, or give them a minimum. There's total flexibility there with how you can structure that. And then you've got the ability to split this up into different projects too. So your monthly work, monthly activity statements, payroll tax returns, you could include your upfront, you could include your like STP authority in there as well. If I haven't got that in my account, but the pure bookkeeping templates we've got for you in there as well. So you can pull in your authorities and so on. And then you could even on charge like your software subscription. So if you're, if you're on charging for like a Xero or MyOb subscription, you could pull that in and the associated cost there as well, which I think is really cool. So look, it might look a little bit complex, but you can have a really flexible proposal now that's got all of these different things going on. And I'll show you what it actually looks like to the client in a second. But if I wanted to create an option here, so what I might do just as an example is remove this quarterly meeting and show you the difference. So if I wanted to create 3 options, I could say, basic, great for those starting out. We'll keep you out of jail and keep you compliant with the ATO. We'll copy this option across. It's medium and advanced, very unoriginal naming that I've got here. And then I could include on this middle package here, the quarterly advisory meeting, or the review, or however you want to, what kind of verbiage you want to use around that. And then for the for a third option, which might be the Uber Deluxe, whatever it is, you could actually have that on a monthly basis. So I'm just trying to get the point across that it's a really good framework for you to start thinking about how you're packaging up and pricing your services to your clients. And it gives you a really good basis of how you can start to structure these out in your proposals. Now, there's like over 40 templates that are available in PI out of the box. But if you're a pure bookkeeping licensee, which I'd assume all of you are, you can actually have all of the engagement letters and authorities and so on imported into PI as well. And each of those have got their own terms and inclusions as part of that service as well. The really cool thing is, like with the STP one, which is not in this account, frustratingly, it's got its own terms that are included automatically in the engagement letter if you add that into the proposal. So as I mentioned, you can grab the pure bookkeeping engagement letter template from here, which automatically populates with everything that you need. So anything around the SLAs, ownership of documents, data storage, unanticipated services, billing out, working out of scope, all that stuff that I mentioned is in there. And you're welcome to use that as a template. That's available on the free trial. And then you can start to think about the presentation and how this looks. So you could include a video if you like. You can include a personal message. Check out this proposal. Great to meet with you. I won't add a video in there at the moment, but you can include a brochure, some branding, all that sort of stuff as well. And then when I go ahead and save that, I'll actually show you what it looks like from the client's perspective. Oh, I've marked it as lost. That's not good. I'll show you on another one. Trying to work off a small laptop screen and only have my trackpad, so it's not working particularly well. But I'll show you this one as an example, which I did yesterday. This is for demonstrating to an accounting firm, but same principle. So you've got the branded up proposal. You've got the video that's included, the personal message, the brochure, and we actually build one of these for each of you if you get started with PI. You've then got the options. So for those of you who are using PI but haven't looked at this yet, this is what it looks like. You've actually got the 3 different packages that are available there with the exact breakdown of what's included, at each of those different price points, and the client selects the one that they want to go ahead with. That's then got the summary and the detail around the scope of work and services that's included there. And this is all flexible and customized. This is all just the standard stuff out of the box that you get. But whether it's the quarterly, the monthly, the weekly, the annual stuff is all in there. And then the payment schedule. So exactly what they will be paying for each of those services. In this instance, I've got prices to be confirmed because I'm billing bookkeeping and payroll per employee or per transaction. So that's going to be finalized every month. And then the fixed fees that are included in there as well. Now, the client, if you do enable payments, can put in their direct debit or credit card information in the proposal itself, and then digitally sign your terms, which they'll get a copy PDF emailed to them as well. But you can see the detail that's included in these terms, just to give you a bit of a picture of what this looks like. You've got pretty much everything that you need in there with regard to exactly what's included in the service, the scope, all the fees are included in there, all the information around, explanations around your fee structure, anything for undefined scope, provision for out of scope work, unanticipated services, all that sort of stuff, clients' responsibilities, confirmation of terms, who's responsible for what isn't included, all that sort of stuff, right, that we talked about in this presentation is in there. And if you need to make a change to that ongoing, it's as simple as jumping into the client, editing the proposal, and it sends them an updated version. And it actually highlights them and says, hey, Katrina sent you a proposal. These are the things that have changed. And they just go through and agree to it again. So it's not a completely new thing. It's like a little box that says, this has changed in your engagement. Please agree to these new terms. So that's the experience. I hope that's been helpful for everyone, just to get a picture of how that all works. But the beautiful thing after that, and the thing that I love, is that you can start to filter and like slice and dice your client base. So if you're like, show me all my small, medium, or large clients, or show me all the clients where I'm not offering this service to, or show me all the clients that are like behind in their payments, or show me, you can start to drill down and get those really interesting insights into your firm. Same with the dashboard as well. So if you wanted to see what's coming in from a revenue projections perspective, you can see that. You can see the breakdown of project and recurring work. You can see all the payments information, etc. And then export out all the client and service information. So that's probably everything that I really wanted to cover today, Katrina, aside from the fact that we've got templates available for members. So the engagement letter, the VAS agent templates, the STP authorities and service templates, and a few others as well. And some pretty significant discounts that are on offer for licensees as well. And so that pretty much rounds out the content that I was going to cover. Any other points from yourself, Katrina?
Yeah, I love that. I haven't actually seen inside of Practice Ignition for a little while. So, it's a different feel, a different interface. I love the different plans that you can put in there, the way that it looks. And doing the hourly rate and the unit rate, that's so much easier than previously. It's fantastic. And I know we've got a lot of pure bookkeeping licensees on the call, but there's also quite a fair few that aren't licensees. So I know our licensees report very highly of, Practice Ignition. They love the ease of it. And it's a game changer, even if, they're just sole traders. On their own, it's just a whole lot easier to be able to create engagement letters on the fly like this, and proposals, and have the monies paid instantly. Which is, rather than chasing after 14 days, 20, it just goes on and on. So it's
we get that quite often, that feedback, Katrina, that the $100 a month, I'm too small. It's not relevant for me. I can't afford the subscription. But look, in reality, if you think about the amount of time that you spend invoicing, chasing clients for payments, and that whole side of your business, and then again, back to valuing your time, it is absolutely worth it. So we've seen debt recovery of, in excess of $300,000-$400,000 up to $680,000, as I mentioned, in terms of fees recovered through PI, particularly if you've got clients you want to put on a payment plan as well. If they owe you a bunch of money and you want to collect over time, you can do that. But at the very least, even if you don't do payments, just that platform and system that you can put in your business to say, this is my baseline charge for these services. Obviously, you can flex and you can adjust depending on the client's circumstances, or there's rescue work involved and you've got to price that differently. But it gives you the system to be able to have those conversations, and a single system of record and source of truth for your practice. So we really love that, and the whole transparency piece, I think, is key. In a sense, when we talk about this topic, it's whether you use Practice Ignition or not, the concepts around being really clear about your inclusions and using your engagement letter as a tool to add value, and being really explicit in your proposal, these are all things which transcend the PI platform. You can do this in PDF if you like, but we're just providing a way to do it quickly, and to not have to spend hours doing it every month. So
and
I'm just catching up on some of the
such a big time saver.
That's right. Yeah.
So we've got quite a few questions in there. Should we go through?
That's great, Katie. 100% of the business and bill recurring in advance, 0 debtor days. No conversations about unpaid bills. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's pretty rare to be operating with 0 debtor days. So well done.
That's awesome. Did you see the question from Janelle? Direct debit option available yet for QBO?
Yes, we can easily do that. Yep, that's available. And then the question from Larissa, can you please show how PI integrates workflows? That's a really good question. I haven't got the XPM instance linked up to this account, but effectively you go into the apps drawer within PI. Oh, actually I might do. You go into the apps drawer within PI, and then you can connect up a bunch of different workflows, whether it's through Zapier or direct with the ledgers or with Carbon or whatever. And then when you're actually creating the proposal, I'll just demonstrate this again in the workflow tab, the automation tab, you can create or build the workflows from here. So this is the link. I'm just using XPM as an example, but you can actually trigger and add multiple workflows, multiple jobs, and have full transparency and customization now over all of the fields within XPM or within Workflow Max. You can link it through to a workflow template if you like, but you can set up the recurring jobs, the billings in relation to the client groups, all that sort of stuff from PI as well. And we're actually adding more. So the vision here in future is to not just have practice management or job related workflows, but it could be like trigger the post client onboard, the new client onboarding checklist, or trigger the, which you can do through Zapier, but surfacing it here. All of the other sort of automations and things that can happen at the same time. So that's new, and we're happy to go through that. We're happy to go through that with you if you would like to schedule in a session. Melinda, with the direct debit, it varies depending on, because we've got the underlying payment rails that we have to adhere to. There's some fraud stuff that a lot of fraud checks that we have to go through. So we do have to hold the funds. It's gotten lower than 7 days of late. So just touch base with us or your account manager to discuss that. But there are some processes that we go through around collecting fees from clients, because we have to do KYC and AML. So we have to validate that they're an actual business, and it's actually a risk mitigation to you at the end of the day. So it's in your benefit, but there is some holding of the funds there as well. I think that was all the questions, Katrina.
Yeah, I think we've covered them all. And I've just popped up a link also if you want a copy of the standard operating procedure that Pure Bookkeeping has written for Practice Ignition.
Which we might have to update now, actually, with all the new updates anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We certainly haven't got a lot of that stuff. But in setting it up and in creating the services and working with the proposals and agreements. So if you want a copy of that SOP, just jump onto that link. And if you want any more information about Pure Bookkeeping as well, there's quite a few people that actually aren't Pure Bookkeeping licensees. So jump onto that link, find out a little bit more. Awesome.
And I just dropped my email address in there. If anyone does want more info about PI, I'm more than happy to connect you with the right person to have a discussion. I didn't mention that we've got a full onboarding program whereby you sit down for specified training sessions with yourself and with your team if you've got a team, and we actually will hold you accountable to these milestones and outcomes. We set up a plan in place to help you to implement it and get full value out of it. So that's all included at no cost now. We used to charge for that, but we included it in the price of the subscription, that you actually get access to the training and the one-on-one meetings for everyone who's coming on board. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of that if you're coming on board. Richard said, yes, I'd like to know about the onboarding. Yeah, sure thing. If you just drop me an email, I'll just put my email in there again. I'll connect you with our team and we can chat through it. It's a really cool partnership that we've got with Pure Bookkeeping, because it's kind of they help with a lot of the frameworks around the monetization, the pricing, the marketing, the articulation of value, and then PI is sort of a really nice system that can accommodate a lot of that and help you deliver it in a professional looking way.
Yeah, and I do love the support that you give. There's so many times that I'm mentoring bookkeepers and that they've not set up the engagement letter. Something has stopped them. They've got a roadblock. They don't know how to tweak something or do something. So constantly sending them back to you to set up that training sessions so that they can, you know, work their way through it and just get through those roadblocks. It's just knowing that there is somebody there to be able to hold their hand and get stuff done. So that's
Yes.
really important support for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all based in either Brisbane, Sydney or Melbourne as well. And so you'll be able to jump on a call with someone in your local time zone and connect that way. So, but yeah, thanks to everyone who's jumped on. It's great to see so many folk join us today. So I hope you've got some value out of that session, whether you're a current customer or not, and that helped kind of clear up some of the obligations surrounding engagement letters and what we recommend as best practice, what we've seen work. You know, we're not the be all and end all, but hopefully it was helpful to all of you.
Yeah, no, getting some comments going through there right now. So yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for attending. I'm glad you found it useful, and thanks so much, Ethan, for providing content and good value.
Great, excellent, everyone. Well, I'm going to go and pick up some stuff. I'm actually getting married on Saturday, so we're kind of hoping that we're going to stay out of lockdown, and I've got to go do some wedding admin for the rest of the day. But good to join you today, and we'll catch up. We'll catch up when I'm back from Tassie. Touch wood.
Yeah. Yes. Otherwise, from Tassie.
That's right. Absolutely.
All right. Well, best of luck on Saturday.
Thanks, Katrina. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you all. Bye.